Jean here, and welcome to the student edition of this training, where we will assist you in developing a kid-friendly common language to help shape these SEL skills in your students in the moment in the natural learning environment. In this student edition training, we will share lots of mini lessons you can use to build your kid-friendly common language. The lessons in this module will be taught directly to you and your students so that you can all be on the same page with the common language. With each video, you'll find a link with a downloadable resource that gives a brief explanation of the concept, the kid-friendly lingo, and an activity to support the lesson. It's important that you make the common language part of your everyday teacher and parent language. Kids will respond to your feedback sooner the more familiar they are with the lingo. Once it becomes a part of your everyday language, kids will be able to pick up on your verbal feedback quicker, helping to shape those SEL competencies while still keeping kids on task learning and growing. Before we begin, I want to give a big shout out of gratitude to Tim Kowalski from socialpragmatics.com. His work has been instrumental in helping to create the foundation in which this common language lives on. So thank you, Tim, for your innovative work and for continuing to help our students grow their social-emotional competencies. As you dig into the various lessons with your students, there are a few big picture items you'll need to be aware of and keep in mind in order to have effective and meaningful results. In the beginning of this student edition training, you'll be teaching kids to read the zone to determine what's expected in a particular situation. That zone changes depending on who we're with and where we're at. So what's expected in the gym zone is different than what's expected in the hallway zone at school, or the kitchen zone is different than the living room zone at home. As you move through the lessons, you'll be helping your kids to understand when they're blending in, doing what's expected in a zone, and when they're not. When kids pop out of the zone by mistake, we call that a social blooper or mulligan moment. But when they pop out of the zone and stay out of the zone, well, we call that a big dot moment. This is just to give kids a reference for how their social behavior affects themselves and others. It's important not to label kids big dots. That is hurtful and counterproductive. You'll want to be sure your students understand this too. In the end, we want to be supportive and help everyone figure out the zone rules so all students can be ready to learn and grow. As well, the rules in these zones are oftentimes determined by the person in charge of that zone, which in most cases will be you. With this role comes some responsibilities to become more aware of, so you're making sure to create and cultivate zones that are safe, equitable, inclusive, and culturally supportive. This means being aware of the rules and expectations you have in place and how it gets communicated to your students. If you're finding that students are having trouble following your zone rules, there may be some areas you can shift to help change that. For starters, it helps to determine if your zone is too tight or too loose. Meaning, if it's too tight, kids might have a really hard time following your expectations because there's very little room for error. Or if your zone is too relaxed and unstructured, this may make it difficult for kids to know what to expect from you, let alone what to expect from them. If you find that your zone needs to loosen or tighten up, one way to find out is to ask your students. Raising student voice and choice can actually work in your favor in the end. No sense banging your head against the wall day after day when some of the solutions may be right in front of you. Just might take a little willingness on your part to listen to the feedback. And finally, be aware of the zone expectations you create in your school and classrooms and whether or not they are embracing all students. Are your expectations geared towards creating inclusive practices? Or do they make kids toe a line that only matches the needs, ideas, and beliefs of some? We can be mindful that our zone expectations make room for all kids to thrive. We want to create zones that foster those important skills of self-advocacy, empathy, and cooperation. This means hearing all the voices in the room and fostering acceptance of the different viewpoints, perspectives, and cultural norms. As well, consider those students who have experienced trauma or have social cognitive deficits. They may need you to stretch the zone rules from time to time and create a classroom culture that shows compassion for when kids are struggling to pick up on the zone rules. On the flip side, are you able to follow through with your expectations and hold kids accountable? This means making sure they restore the situation and build the muscle of responsible decision making. No doubt the needs of your students are vast, and there isn't one size fits all formula. The goal here is not to have perfectly behaved soldiers in your homes and classrooms, but rather to have kids feel safe and seen as they grow and evolve into human beings with happy, healthy hearts and minds. Okay, everyone, that's it for now. All I ask is that you continue to reaffirm, reassess, and reinvent the ways in which we shape these skills in our kids moving forward. And remember, if we all don't row, the boat won't go. So let's work together to make this seemingly impossible mission possible.